There are moments when everything feels strangely familiar. You cannot explain why it happens. A certain person enters your life. Something inside you immediately reacts. Your heart feels strangely pulled toward them, yet your spirit feels deeply uncomfortable. You may call it attraction. You may call it chemistry. You may call it destiny. But sometimes something feels spiritually wrong, and you cannot explain that feeling. You keep asking yourself difficult questions. Why did this person change me? Why did I lose myself around them? Why did everything feel dark afterward? Why did peace disappear from my life? Why did my confidence suddenly collapse? Why did I become someone else? Why did I tolerate things before? Why did I ignore obvious warning signs? Why did my intuition keep screaming? Why did my spirit feel completely exhausted? Maybe you thought love required suffering. Maybe you believed patience meant enduring everything. Maybe you thought God was testing you. Maybe you blamed yourself for everything. But there is something deeper here. Your experience may have changed you, not because you were weak, not because you lacked wisdom, not because you deserved pain. Sometimes relationships leave spiritual consequences. Sometimes emotional connections become deeply destructive. Sometimes people carry darkness unknowingly. And sometimes unhealthy relationships become spiritually consuming. This message is not about creating fear. This message is about recognizing what happened. You need understanding before you find freedom. You need clarity before you find peace. You need truth before healing begins. So listen carefully to this message. Do not listen with fear today. Listen with discernment and wisdom instead, because your story is not finished. Your past does not control your future. What happened cannot define your identity. What hurt you cannot own you. What confused you cannot destroy you. And what broke you can become wisdom. There was a reason something felt different. There was a reason peace disappeared. There was a reason your energy changed. There was a reason you felt constantly drained. There was a reason you became silent. There was a reason you stopped recognizing yourself. Maybe you entered that relationship hopeful. Maybe you entered it believing sincerely. Maybe you thought you found your person. Maybe everything appeared beautiful initially. They understood your wounds quickly. They learned your deepest fears quickly. They discovered your emotional weaknesses quickly. They knew exactly what you needed. They knew exactly what you wanted. They made you feel incredibly understood. They made you feel completely chosen. They made you feel incredibly special. And that made your guard disappear. You trusted them without questioning anything. You opened your heart completely. You shared things nobody knew. You revealed your deepest private thoughts. You trusted their words completely. You believed their promises deeply. But something eventually began changing. The atmosphere around you became different. Conversations started feeling emotionally heavy. Their presence began affecting your peace. Your thoughts became increasingly confused. Your emotions became difficult to control. Your confidence slowly started disappearing. Your spiritual life became weaker. Your prayers became harder to maintain. Your joy became increasingly difficult to access. And you wondered what changed. Maybe nothing obvious happened immediately. That is what makes these relationships confusing. The darkness rarely announces itself openly. It often appears disguised as affection. It can appear disguised as attention. It can appear disguised as protection. It can appear disguised as intense connection. It can appear disguised as destiny. It can appear disguised as unconditional love. But healthy love brings room for breathing. Healthy love does not destroy your identity. Healthy love does not constantly create fear. Healthy love does not manipulate your emotions. Healthy love does not demand your silence. Healthy love does not isolate you. Healthy love does not constantly confuse you. Healthy love does not punish your boundaries. Healthy love does not require losing yourself. You need to understand this deeply. Intensity does not automatically mean spiritual connection. Obsession does not automatically mean destiny. Chemistry does not automatically mean compatibility. Attachment does not automatically mean love. And suffering does not prove commitment. Sometimes we confuse emotional addiction with connection. Sometimes pain creates powerful psychological attachment. Sometimes inconsistency makes people chase harder. Sometimes rejection makes desire become stronger. Sometimes manipulation feels strangely irresistible. That does not make it sacred. That does not make it divinely appointed. That does not mean you must stay. Sometimes leaving is the spiritual breakthrough. Sometimes distance becomes the necessary protection. Sometimes silence becomes your greatest answer. Sometimes your peace requires separation. Sometimes your healing requires complete boundaries. And sometimes you need to stop explaining. You already explained yourself enough. You already gave enough chances. You already ignored enough warning signs. You already carried enough emotional weight. You do not need another explanation. You need permission to move forward. Let me tell you something important. You were never created to live imprisoned. You were never created to constantly feel afraid. You were never created to shrink yourself. You were never created to beg for affection. You were never created to prove your worth. You were never created to accept emotional destruction. You were created with purpose. You were created with dignity. You were created with a mind. You were created with discernment. You were created with boundaries. You were created with freedom, and your freedom matters. Perhaps you remember how everything started. You were excited about their attention. You felt noticed in unusual ways. They seemed unusually interested in you. They wanted constant communication. They wanted constant access. They wanted to know everything. They wanted your time constantly. They wanted your attention constantly. At first it felt romantic. Eventually it became suffocating. That difference matters tremendously. Love gives space for individuality. Control demands constant availability. Love respects boundaries. Control becomes offended by boundaries. Love listens when you say no. Control makes you feel guilty. Love encourages healthy relationships. Control isolates you from others. Love celebrates your growth. Control fears your independence. Love creates emotional safety. Control creates emotional instability. Love allows honest disagreement. Control demands absolute agreement. These differences reveal everything. You may have noticed subtle signs. They became jealous of everyone around you. They questioned your friendships constantly. They criticized people you trusted. They created conflicts between relationships. They made you doubt yourself. They made you question your memory. They denied things they previously said. They changed stories whenever confronted. They made you apologize constantly. They turned every problem toward you. You started walking carefully around them. You started choosing words extremely carefully. You feared triggering another argument. You feared their emotional reactions. You feared their silence afterward. You feared their unpredictable moods. You feared losing their affection. And slowly, fear replaced freedom. That is when something becomes deeply unhealthy. Your nervous system remains constantly activated. Your mind never completely rests. Your heart remains constantly alert. Your body feels exhausted constantly. Your thoughts become increasingly negative. Your spiritual focus becomes weaker. Your confidence becomes increasingly fragile. You begin questioning everything about yourself. You wonder whether you are difficult. You wonder whether you are selfish. You wonder whether you are unlovable. You wonder whether you caused everything. You wonder whether you are spiritually failing. But maybe you were simply being manipulated. Maybe you were being emotionally conditioned. Maybe you were constantly being destabilized. Maybe your instincts recognize something first. Your mind sometimes rationalizes what hurts. Your spirit often notices what words conceal. That inner discomfort deserves attention. It does not automatically prove supernatural involvement, but it can reveal serious relational danger. That distinction is incredibly important. Do not label everyone evil. Do not assume every difficult person carries demons. Do not turn ordinary conflict into spiritual warfare. Do not let fear control your decisions. Instead, examine patterns carefully. Look at what consistently happens. Look at how you feel afterward. Look at what the relationship produces. Does it produce peace or chaos? Does it produce growth or shrinking? Does it produce honesty or confusion? Does it produce freedom or fear? Does it produce courage or insecurity? Does it produce connection or isolation? Does it produce hope or hopelessness? Those patterns tell you something important. Sometimes the greatest spiritual sign is fruit. Look at what grows around someone. Does kindness increase around them? Does honesty become easier around them? Does compassion become stronger around them? Does patience become more natural around them? Or does everything become darker? Do you constantly feel emotionally exhausted? Do you constantly feel spiritually disconnected? Do you constantly feel guilty without reason? Do you constantly feel worthless? Do you constantly feel watched or controlled? Do you constantly feel trapped? Do you constantly feel afraid? Then something needs to change. Maybe you stayed because you loved them. Maybe you stayed because you remembered better days. Maybe you stayed because you hoped. Maybe you stayed because they apologized. Maybe you stayed because they promised change. Maybe you stayed because leaving felt impossible. Maybe you stayed because loneliness scared you. But staying does not make you foolish. It makes you human. People stay inside confusing situations. People hope difficult things will improve. People remember the good moments. People believe promises after apologies. People want their investment to matter. People struggle to abandon familiar pain. You should not hate yourself for that. You should learn from what happened. Your past can become discernment. Your pain can become wisdom. Your confusion can become clarity. Your boundaries can become stronger. Your experience can protect your future. And your healing can help others. Maybe this relationship changed your spiritual life. You stopped praying like you once did. You stopped trusting your intuition. You stopped feeling connected internally. You started feeling spiritually numb. You started avoiding quiet moments because quiet moments reminded you. They reminded you who you were. They reminded you what you had lost. They reminded you something felt wrong. Perhaps that relationship consumed your attention. Every day revolved around their emotions. Every conversation revolved around their needs. Every decision revolved around their reactions. Your entire world became emotionally centered there. That is not healthy partnership. That is emotional captivity. And emotional captivity can feel spiritual because your identity becomes buried underneath fear. You begin living according to reactions. You stop living according to values. You become focused on survival. You stop thinking about purpose. You stop thinking about growth. You stop thinking about your future. You simply try making tomorrow peaceful. That is not the life you deserve. You deserve something completely different. You deserve relationships built upon mutual respect. You deserve conversations without intimidation. You deserve affection without manipulation. You deserve commitment without control. You deserve honesty without psychological games. You deserve boundaries without punishment. You deserve peace without constantly earning it. You deserve love without losing yourself. And you deserve spiritual freedom. Now hear this carefully. You do not need supernatural explanations everywhere. Sometimes ordinary human behavior causes extraordinary damage. Manipulation is powerful without supernatural involvement. Narcissistic behavior can destroy emotional stability. Trauma bonding can create intense attachment. Gaslighting can distort your confidence. Emotional abuse can change your worldview. Isolation can weaken your support system. Fear can make leaving feel impossible. None of these require supernatural assumptions, yet your spiritual beliefs can still help. Faith can give you courage. Prayer can give you perspective. Wisdom can guide your decisions. Community can strengthen your boundaries. Healthy people can restore your trust. Truth can replace confusion. And time can rebuild your identity. If you believe something spiritually dark happened, focus first on what brings you peace. Do not obsess over invisible enemies. Do not spend every night searching for signs. Do not interpret every coincidence as spiritual warfare. Do not allow fear to become another prison. Freedom requires grounding. Freedom requires reality. Freedom requires healthy relationships. Freedom requires practical boundaries. Freedom requires honest self-examination. And sometimes professional support helps tremendously. There is no shame in seeking help. There is strength in asking for support. You do not have to heal alone. You do not need to explain everything perfectly. You simply need somewhere safe to begin. Start by telling yourself the truth. That relationship hurt you. That experience changed you. Some boundaries were crossed. Some things were deeply unhealthy. You deserve better treatment. You are allowed to acknowledge that. You are allowed to grieve. You are allowed to feel angry. You are allowed to feel confused. You are allowed to miss someone harmful. You are allowed to feel relieved. You are allowed to feel everything. Healing is rarely emotionally simple. One day you may feel completely free. Another day memories may return suddenly. You may remember their voice. You may remember their promises. You may remember their apologies. You may remember their affection. You may remember their cruelty. Your mind may replay everything. That does not mean you should return. Missing someone does not mean they belong. Remembering someone does not mean reconnecting. Feeling love does not require returning. Forgiveness does not require renewed access. Compassion does not require abandoning boundaries. You can forgive from far away. You can pray without reopening doors. You can care without surrendering yourself. You can wish them healing separately. You can choose yourself without hatred. That is spiritual maturity. That is emotional maturity. That is personal freedom. And perhaps your greatest lesson was this: not everyone who enters your life belongs. Not every connection deserves continuation. Not every intense relationship is sacred. Not every promise deserves belief. Not every apology deserves another chance. Not every person deserves access. Your heart needs discernment. Your spirit needs wisdom. Your future needs protection. Your peace needs boundaries. You may have ignored your intuition previously. Maybe you thought intuition was irrational. Maybe you called yourself overly sensitive. Maybe someone convinced you of that. Maybe they constantly dismissed your concerns. Eventually you stopped trusting yourself. That was one of the deepest wounds, because losing someone hurts, but losing trust in yourself hurts differently. You begin looking outside yourself constantly. You ask everyone what you should feel. You ask everyone whether something is wrong. You ask everyone whether you're imagining things. You become disconnected from your own judgment. Healing means rebuilding that trust. Start making small decisions again. Choose what feels healthy. Choose what feels respectful. Choose what aligns with your values. Choose people who listen. Choose people who respect no. Choose people who celebrate your growth. Choose environments where you can breathe. Your spirit needs room again. Your mind needs silence again. Your heart needs safety again. Your body needs rest again. Your life needs joy again. And that restoration takes time. Do not rush your healing process. You spent time adapting to chaos. Now you need time adapting to peace. At first, peace may feel uncomfortable. You may mistake calmness for emptiness. You may miss emotional intensity. You may think something is missing. But calmness is not emptiness. Peace is not boredom. Consistency is not lack of passion. Healthy love can feel unfamiliar because chaos trained you differently. You learn to associate uncertainty with excitement. You learn to associate anxiety with attraction. You learn to associate jealousy with importance. You learn to associate suffering with commitment. Now those beliefs must change. You need new definitions of love. Love should not require constant fear. Love should not require constant reassurance. Love should not require emotional begging. Love should not require losing yourself. Love should not make you smaller. Love should help you become healthier. Love should make honesty feel safer. Love should make boundaries feel acceptable. Love should create mutual responsibility. This is where your transformation begins. You stop chasing emotional intensity. You start choosing emotional safety. You stop worshiping potential. You start observing reality. You stop believing promises blindly. You start watching consistent behavior. You stop explaining obvious disrespect. You start responding through boundaries. You stop asking why they hurt you. You start asking why you stayed, not to shame yourself, but to understand yourself. That question can change everything. What need kept you attached? What fear kept you there? What hope kept you waiting? What wound made chaos familiar? What belief made suffering acceptable? What boundary did you struggle establishing? These questions reveal your healing path. Maybe you feared abandonment. Maybe you feared being alone. Maybe you feared starting again. Maybe you believed nobody better existed. Maybe you believed love required sacrifice. Maybe you believed leaving meant failure. Maybe you thought patience would transform them. But another person cannot heal themselves through you. You cannot love someone into accountability. You cannot sacrifice enough to create maturity. You cannot pray away someone's choices. You cannot rescue someone who refuses responsibility. You cannot become responsible for their darkness. That burden was never yours. You are responsible for your choices. You are responsible for your boundaries. You are responsible for your healing. You are responsible for your future. And that responsibility is empowering, because you are not powerless anymore. You can choose differently now. You can walk away now. You can say no now. You can seek help now. You can rebuild now. You can begin again now. And beginning again is not failure. It is evidence of courage. Maybe you think the relationship ruined you. It did not have final authority. You are still here. You are still learning. You are still growing. You are still capable of love. You are still capable of trust. You are still capable of joy. You are still capable of purpose. You are still capable of becoming whole. That matters more than your past. And if you interpret your experience spiritually, remember that wisdom should create peace. A spiritual message should not enslave you. It should not make you paranoid. It should not make you hate everyone. It should not make you fear ordinary life. True discernment makes you calmer. It makes you more grounded. It makes you more compassionate. It makes you more courageous. It makes you more careful. It makes you more truthful. It makes you more aware. So if your spirit says leave, listen alongside practical evidence. If your heart says something feels wrong, investigate the pattern carefully. If trusted people express concern, do not automatically dismiss them. If abuse exists, prioritize your safety immediately. If you feel threatened, seek appropriate real-world support. Spirituality should never replace practical protection. Prayer and wisdom can work together. Faith and boundaries can work together. Compassion and distance can work together. Forgiveness and accountability can work together. You can be spiritual and practical. You can believe deeply and think clearly. You can trust God and seek help. You can pray and make plans. You can forgive and still leave. You can love and still say no. That balance is powerful. And perhaps this is your sign today. Not a sign of supernatural terror, a sign of awakening. A sign that you finally recognize patterns. A sign that confusion is losing power. A sign that your identity is returning. A sign that your boundaries are strengthening. A sign that your peace matters. A sign that you can begin again. You survived something emotionally overwhelming. Now you need to stop romanticizing survival. You do not need another painful lesson. You do not need another toxic connection. You do not need another impossible explanation. You need restoration. You need healthy people around you. You need honest conversations. You need peaceful environments. You need time away from chaos. You need space to think. You need permission to become yourself. And slowly you will recognize yourself again. You will laugh without checking reactions. You will speak without rehearsing everything. You will sleep without anticipating conflict. You will make decisions without asking permission. You will enjoy things without feeling guilty. You will trust your instincts again. You will breathe differently. Your life will feel wider. Your future will feel possible. And one day you may realize something. The relationship did not destroy you. It revealed what needed healing. It revealed where boundaries were missing. It revealed where fear controlled you. It revealed where you abandoned yourself. It revealed what you cannot accept again. That knowledge becomes powerful, because now you know what matters. Now you know what peace feels like. Now you know what control looks like. Now you know what manipulation sounds like. Now you know what inconsistency feels like. Now you know what emotional safety requires. You are no longer entering blindly. You are entering wiser. You are entering stronger. You are entering more discerning. You are entering more grounded, and that is a victory. Maybe you once wondered why this happened. Maybe you demanded an answer constantly. Maybe you blamed God for allowing it. Maybe you blamed yourself for choosing them. Maybe you blamed fate for everything. But life contains human choices. People make choices that hurt others. People hide their intentions. People manipulate. People deceive. People change. People sometimes become destructive. Your suffering does not prove abandonment. Your painful relationship does not prove spiritual rejection. Your experience does not mean you were cursed. Your trauma does not mean darkness owns you. You can reject that fear. You can choose a healthier interpretation. You experience something difficult. You learn something important. You can heal from it. That is enough. You do not need a frightening label. You need understanding. You need compassion toward yourself. You need practical healing. You need healthy support. You need time. And you need hope. Hope is not pretending nothing happened. Hope means believing what happened isn't everything. Hope means your future remains open. Hope means your identity survives the pain. Hope means tomorrow can become different. Hope means you can rebuild trust. Hope means peace can return, and peace will return gradually. Maybe not overnight, maybe not immediately, but gradually. One boundary at a time, one honest conversation at a time, one peaceful morning at a time, one healthy relationship at a time, one brave decision at a time, one prayer at a time, one breath at a time. You are rebuilding. Do not underestimate small progress. Getting through one peaceful day matters. Ignoring one manipulative message matters. Saying no once matters. Choosing yourself once matters. Seeking support once matters. Resting without guilt matters. Every healthy choice strengthens you. Every boundary teaches your nervous system safety. Every honest decision restores self-respect. Every peaceful moment rebuilds your identity. Eventually, peace becomes familiar again. And when peace becomes familiar, you will stop chasing chaos. You will stop confusing anxiety with attraction. You will stop mistaking obsession for devotion. You will stop calling control protection. You will stop calling manipulation concern. You will stop calling disrespect passion. You will stop calling suffering destiny. You will see everything differently. That is what awakening really looks like. Not fear, not paranoia, not obsession with invisible forces, but clarity, discernment, wisdom, freedom, self-respect, and peace. So if you believe you were involved with someone spiritually destructive, do not panic. Step back, breathe, look at reality, look at the patterns, look at your emotional health, look at your physical safety, look at your support system, look at your boundaries. Then make wise decisions. You do not have to solve everything tonight. You only need your next healthy step. Maybe that step is distance. Maybe that step is counseling. Maybe that step is telling someone. Maybe that step is blocking contact. Maybe that step is creating a safety plan. Maybe that step is returning to prayer. Maybe that step is sleeping peacefully. Maybe that step is forgiving yourself. Whatever it is, choose wisdom. Do not choose fear. Fear makes everything look supernatural. Wisdom makes everything understandable. Fear says you are trapped. Wisdom says you have choices. Fear says they own your future. Wisdom says your future remains yours. Fear says your life is over. Wisdom says your life is beginning. And maybe this message found you today because you needed permission to leave. Maybe you needed someone saying this clearly. You are allowed to choose peace. You are allowed to protect yourself. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to start over. You are allowed to stop explaining. You are allowed to stop returning. You are allowed to stop carrying guilt. You are allowed to become yourself again. No relationship deserves your complete destruction. No person deserves unlimited access. No promise deserves endless chances. No apology cancels repeated behavior. No connection justifies constant suffering. And no fear should control your future. You are more than what happened. You are more than their opinion. You are more than their manipulation. You are more than their rejection. You are more than their memories. You are more than your mistakes. You are more than your past. Your identity belongs to you. Your future belongs to you. Your choices belong to you. Your healing belongs to you. Your peace belongs to you. Remember that when doubt returns, remember that when loneliness speaks, Remember that when memories become loud, remember that when they suddenly return, remember that when apologies sound convincing, remember what consistency taught you. Remember what your body experienced. Remember what your mind endured. Remember what your spirit needed. Then choose wisely. You do not need revenge. You do not need confrontation. You do not need dramatic endings. You do not need proving anything. Sometimes quiet distance is enough. Sometimes healing requires no final conversation. Sometimes closure comes from accepting reality. You may never understand their behavior. You may never understand their motives. You may never receive the apology. You may never hear the truth, and you can still heal. Closure does not always come from them. Sometimes closure comes from yourself. You finally accept what happened. You finally stop negotiating reality. You finally stop waiting for change. You finally stop reopening the wound. You finally choose your future. That is closure. That is freedom. That is your turning point. And maybe the greatest spiritual lesson was never about the demon itself. Maybe it was about discernment. Maybe it was about learning boundaries. Maybe it was about recognizing unhealthy attachment. Maybe it was about trusting wisdom. Maybe it was about returning to yourself. Maybe it was about understanding love. Maybe it was about becoming stronger. Maybe it was about discovering your worth. Whatever language you use, let the lesson make you wiser. Do not let it make you afraid. Do not let the past become your identity. Do not let one relationship define love. Do not let one person define people. Do not let one chapter define destiny. Your story continues beyond them. There are healthier people ahead. There are peaceful environments ahead. There are genuine connections ahead. There are meaningful experiences ahead. There are new beginnings ahead. There are opportunities ahead. There is life ahead, and you are allowed to live it. So tonight, release what you can. Release the guilt. Release the obsession. Release the constant questions. Release the need for explanations. Release the fear of being alone. Release the fantasy of changing them. Release the belief that suffering proves love. Release the belief that you are powerless.